From the St. Louis Public Radio newsroom, this is The Gateway. It's Friday, November 15th. I'm Abby Larico. Most of the canned pumpkin that goes into Americans' Thanksgiving pumpkin pie comes from an area about 150 miles from St. Louis.
It's a great story to tell. You know, one of my colleagues once said, Thanksgiving is brought to you by Greater Peoria.
What makes the region so great for pumpkins and their importance to the local economy, coming up after this news on The Gateway. St. Louis County health workers are investigating an outbreak of E. coli infections among people who attended an event sponsored by a Fenton high school. St. Louis Public Radio's Sarah Fenton reports at least 19 cases of E. coli have been identified among parents and students from Rockwood Summit High School.
Officials from the health department say they're still determining the cause of the infections and couldn't give further details about where the event took place. County Health Director Kanika Cunningham says they've identified E. coli cases through laboratory tests and from people's symptoms. Those symptoms include cramps, diarrhea, vomiting, and dehydration. She says the school-sponsored function happened off campus.
One thing I can say that it's not a cafeteria-related event. It truly was an off-site event, and that's what we're currently working with that particular entity, and we're currently doing our investigation to uncover the source.
A spokesman from the Rockwood School District says the school's deep-cleaned bathrooms, classrooms, and other common areas to contain the infection's spread. I'm Sarah Fenton, St. Louis Public Radio.
Legislation for a new community improvement district downtown is back before the Board of Aldermen today after passing out of committee earlier this week. The Downtown North Community Improvement District would encompass Washington Avenue from 4th Street to Tucker and some properties to the north. John Berglund is managing partner at the Starwood Group, which owns the Post building, and he's one of the people spearheading this new district. He says it will help formalize some of the work he's already done to promote the area as a destination for geospatial, fintech, and entrepreneurship.
We started this SID so that more of the stakeholders along Washington Avenue would both have a say-so, but also pay into this because it benefits everyone.
Advocates say the proposed district would bring in close to $300,000 a year from a special assessment on properties located in it. Some of the district's goals would include a lighting study along Washington Avenue, addressing nuisance properties, and adding traffic calming. Some St. Louis University graduate students have voted to unionize. The Graduate Workers of St. Louis University, Union UAW, will include more than 500 people who work for the school as teaching and research assistants. Members are calling for the university to improve working conditions and increase pay. The move is the latest in a growing number of graduate student unionization efforts across the country. Immigrants, refugees, and asylum seekers in the St. Louis area worry that their legal status could be in jeopardy with President-elect Donald Trump's mass deportation plan. Immigration attorneys say people should file their temporary protected status and work permit renewals now. St. Louis Public Radio's Andrea Henderson reports.
St. Louis immigration attorney Javad Kazale has been fielding dozens of calls from worried immigrants and permanent residents about their legal statuses. Kazale has been filing temporary protected status and DACA waivers and renewal applications nonstop since last week. He says those programs will probably end next year.
During the last administration, what they basically said was if you had a valid document, they weren't going to mess with you until that document expired. They may change that this time, but we want to push out expiration dates as far as possible.
Attorneys suggest people keep copies of government documents with them at all times and renewing any expiring ones as soon as possible. I'm Andrea Henderson, St. Louis Public Radio.
A Weldon Spring nurse is leading a petition effort to change Missouri's rules on licensing. Missouri is not one of the 10 states that allows members of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, or DACA, to get a nursing license. Alondra Orozco is using social media to get attention for the cause. She graduated from St. Charles Community College and passed all of her exams, but can't work as a nurse in Missouri.
I mean, they're even hiring international nurses. When I've been here since I was 5 years old, I started kindergarten here and have finished college. All I know is the American school system. Mm-hmm. I'm fluent in English. I have everything that they would, need or want.
Orozco was a guest on St. Louis on the Air. More than 16,000 people have signed a petition on change.org asking Missouri to revise its rules. Plaintiffs in an Illinois case hope the U.S. Supreme Court will hear their arguments in a lawsuit challenging so-called buffer zones around abortion clinics. Capital News Illinois reports the case involves an ordinance the city of Carbondale enacted, but has since repealed, creating a buffer zone between medical clinics and protesters. Coalition Life sued the city, saying the new rules violated their rights to free speech. 2 lower courts have dismissed the case, but Coalition Life is now asking the Supreme Court to take it up. Last week, the U.S. Supreme Court postponed a hearing on the matter, putting off a decision on whether they'd take the case, with a new conference date scheduled for today. U.S. Senator Dick Durbin says he wants to confirm the rest of President Joe Biden's judicial nominees during the lame duck session. Durbin is an Illinois Democrat and outgoing chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He says there are still more than a dozen vacancies he wants to fill before Republicans take the majority in January.
The Senate must try to confirm every one of these highly qualified, diverse nominees before the sun sets in the 118th Congress. The American people deserve nothing less.
More than 200 judges have been confirmed to lifetime appointments on the federal bench during the Biden administration. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker says he is still not a fan of downstate counties passing advisory referendums about seceding from the state, like Madison County did last week. St. Louis Public Radio's Will Bauer reports the governor made his comments during a Thursday afternoon stop there.
Voters in Madison County approved the advisory referendum 56 to 43%. It became the first non-rural county to pass the measure, joining 32 others in downstate. At an unrelated press conference in Alton, the second-term Democrat says he wasn't surprised by the outcome.
I think people, express their frustrations in a variety of ways. This is not something that actually will make any change in the state of Illinois.
Pritzker also noted that President-elect Donald Trump won Madison County by a wide margin, 13 percentage points. That's one of the main reasons Pritzker said he wasn't surprised it passed. Actually, forming a new state would require approval of both the Illinois General Assembly and Congress. That's something legal and political experts find highly improbable. In Alton, I'm Will Bauer, St. Louis Public Radio.
A new report finds greenhouse gas emissions in Illinois are down by approximately 25% since 2005. That's ahead of the national average. The Illinois Public Research Interest Group, which co-authored the study, says that's mainly due to the shuttering of coal-fired power plants. However, although the power sector saw significant decreases, the agricultural, commercial, and residential sectors all saw emissions increases since 2005. Report co-author Abe Scar says the state is using more renewable energy sources, like wind and solar, to replace coal. It's that time of year when people eat a lot of pumpkin. Pumpkin pie, pumpkin bread, even pumpkin ice cream. Most of the pumpkin that goes into these treats comes from Morton, Illinois, a town about 150 miles northeast of St. Louis. In fact, in any given year, up to 95% of the canned pumpkin in the U.S. comes from this area. Harvest Public Media contributor Joe Deacon gives us a look at how this popular crop figures into the local economy.
On a cool and breezy fall morning, John Ackerman surveys the pumpkin crop on his farm field just east of Morton.
It's been a good year for us. Normally pumpkins like it relatively dry. I've been amazed at how great this year was for pumpkins.
Ackerman's 30-acre farm has been in his family since 1909, originally focused on livestock, small grains, and row crops. In the 80s, he shifted the primary interest to pumpkins when he was first contracted by the nearby Libby's plant in Morton, a village that has embraced an identity as pumpkin capital of the world.
As soon as you start raising pumpkins, you fall in love with them. It's a great way of life.
Farms in this part of the country are well known for growing corn and soybeans. But in Morton and around Peoria, there's an emphasis on foods people serve during the holidays, especially pumpkins.
It's a great story to tell. One of my colleagues once said, Thanksgiving is brought to you by Greater Peoria.
That's Chris Setti, the CEO of the Greater Peoria Economic Development Council. According to their figures, the Peoria region produces more than 220,000 tons of pumpkin each year. And a big reason for that is the Libby's plant. Rochelle Malin is with Nestle, Libby's parent company.
Over the last 16 years, we've harvested over 1.9 million tons of pumpkins. And then just last year, Libby sold enough cans in grocery stores to bake over 48 million pumpkin pies.
Malin says more than 90% of Libby's pumpkins are grown within a 45-mile radius of the facility, allowing them to establish a partnership with their farmers through the entire process. She says they help growers identify the best fields for their pumpkins.
Then Nestle provides our proprietary pumpkin seed and offers technical assistance during the planting. Once the seeds are planted, the ag team works with growers to continuously monitor that soil health, climate, and our pumpkins throughout the growing season and harvest.
Malin says these unique partnerships allow them to explore more environmentally friendly practices, such as cover crops and precise fertilizer application to improve soil quality. And Illinois' soil and climate is ideal for growing pumpkins. Mohammed Babadoust is a professor of plant pathology at the University of Illinois who specializes in vegetable and fruit crops. He says pumpkins have a huge impact on the state's agricultural economy.
In Illinois, we grow at least 3 times more pumpkin than any other state. One time I calculated pumpkin industry, in my calculation, is over $200 million industry in Illinois.
In Morton, they're very aware that the town is the heart of that industry. The village holds an annual pumpkin festival, which attracts 75,000 people over 4 days each September. Mayor Jeff Kaufman says pumpkin is just about everything in Morton.
Next year, Libby's will be in Morton for 100 years. So it's very important. I mean, they have 200 employees when they're canning and everything, and they support our stores and shops, gas stations.
Kaufman says almost anywhere you look in Morton, you'll see some sort of pumpkin depiction.
Just painted our water tower, a new logo, and the very next day I was already hearing compliments, and I had one lady demanded the other one get painted. I said, well, we're going to let the paint, wear out just a little bit more.
Back at Ackerman's farm, they hand-pick roughly 30,000 pumpkins each year. For several weeks each fall, visitors flock to his farm stand to choose the perfect pumpkin from among 160 different varieties.
There's something iconically beautiful about looking over a pumpkin field when they're ripe, and it just shows the fruits of your labor.
As he looks out over his field of orange, white, and yellow pumpkins, Ackerman says the farm will continue to be a busy place as Thanksgiving approaches. For Harvest Public Media, I'm Joe Deacon.
Feel free to share what you learned in that story around your Thanksgiving dinner table this year, and don't forget to tell them you heard it here. Harvest Public Media is a collaboration of public media newsrooms in the Midwest and Great Plains, including STLPR. The Gateway is a production of St. Louis Public Radio, a listener-supported service of the University of Missouri-St. Louis. Music by Ryan McNeely of Adult Fur. I'm Abby Larico, and from the St. Louis Public Radio newsroom, this has been The Gateway. Have a great weekend.